Everyone, please join me in Gasho and repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandas, namandas, namandas. Good morning, everyone. I first would like to give a very big heartfelt thank you to all the members here today, Dharma School students and members alike, for helping to welcome the Miyajis back to Tacoma Buddhist Temple. It was such a wonderful weekend last weekend, and it was so inspiring to hear Reverend Miyaji speak at his seminar and at his Dharma talk on this past Sunday. It was so wonderful to see Kaori and Keisai, and to see Keisai give that amazing performance of the Backstreet Boys. And it's always so wonderful to see old friends and to reacquaint ourselves with the people we really miss. And it sort of feels like when we go back and have those family reunions. How many of you have been to a family reunion this year so far? Anybody? You? Yes? Okay, all right. And if you go to one of those big family reunions, you probably have this real strong feeling of what's called natsukashi in Japanese. Everybody say that with me. Natsukashi. Natsukashi. Very good. What that means is nostalgia. But what it could also mean is that you have this deep, warm feeling, this deep, warm, loving feeling that of a place you used to know, of a person you used to see all the time. For Dharma school students, it's probably that wonderful feeling you feel when you go back to school, right? Some of you probably go, I have to go back to school, I have to deal with schoolwork. But I know for a fact that there are people who, when you go back to school, that you are very, very excited to see. Most likely your friends, your peers of the same age, maybe even a teacher you really, really like. We have some wonderful teachers here in the congregation, and it's that real deep feeling of appreciation, love, warmth, that all of those feelings encapsulate natsukashi. Say that again with me, natsukashi. Very good. And when you go back to a place that you used to visit a long time ago, or a place that seems familiar, you can easily say that word, natsukashi, and it will encapsulate all of the feelings that I had just mentioned. So most likely when seeing Reverend Miyaji and his family here again, seeing Reverend Miyaji on the Onaijin, seeing Keisai running around downstairs, being able to talk with Kaori-san, you probably had that deep feeling of natsukashi. And eventually, I hope, in the future, we get that same feeling when we say Namo Amida Butsu. So as you all remember, Reverend Miyaji's message last weekend for his seminar was the joy of the Nembutsu way of life. Now for Dharma school students, when we recite Namo Amida Butsu, I know it can be a hard word sometimes. Making sure, it's a long thing to say when you think about it. Namo Amida Butsu. So sometimes you hear people go, like they kind of mumble it, right? But in reality, this feeling, right, of natsukashi, or of this warm sense of familiarity, also is the feeling that's encapsulated in Namo Amida Butsu. Sometimes it's that feeling you get too when we have hakamairi, when you go to the cemetery to visit our past loved ones. You have all of these beautiful memories of the past. But when you go also to those family reunions that I had mentioned before, when you go back to school, or when you come back to temple, when Dharma school starts up again, and you are 1 year older, and you see your friends, and you get to see all the Sangha members, right? This warm feeling of gratitude, warmth, and love is what also encapsulates Namo Amida Butsu. So Dharma school students, I want you to put your hands together, place your hands together, please. Put your hands together in Gasho. Really recall a loving memory, beautiful memory of whether it's a family gathering, whether it's when Reverend Miyaji came, whether it's anything that brings you this deep sense of joy. And repeat after me, Namo Amida Butsu. Say it a little bit slower, Namo Amida Butsu. Very good, yes. This deep feeling of gratitude and joy is what encapsulates, is what totally encompasses that feeling of Nembutsu. And when you think about it, why is Namo Amida Butsu so important in our daily lives? Because it helps to guide us in our daily lives when we feel grateful, when we feel warm, when we feel this deep sense of thank you to all of the people. Now remember today, after service, which I'm certain that many of you are very eager to get to, we have the Parents Appreciation Luncheon, right? We have the Parents Appreciation Luncheon prepared by our YBA and our YBA advisors who are probably still downstairs working very hard. But when you think about why we're having this meal, and it's very easy to get caught up and to only focus on the food. I know I do, because the food here that the members cook is so delicious. But what's most important, right, besides the deliciousness of the food and everything, is why we're having it in the first place. Dharma school students, how many of you sincerely say thank you to your parents? Sincerely say thank you to your teachers. Sincerely stop and consider for a moment all of the time and the energy that is spent guiding you in your daily life. Do you say thank you? Do you say thank you? Do you realize how much your parents love you? How much the Sangha loves you? You are here because, we are learning about Buddhism, but part of learning Buddhism is saying thank you, is saying thank you, realizing, not because out of obligation, okay, not because it's the thing you have to say, right, but because you truly feel that deep sense of appreciation, that deep sense of love and acceptance. All of you Dharma school students are loved and accepted by the Sangha here. All of you Dharma school students are going to be continued to be supported by the temple and of course by your parents, as you continue to graduate, if you have to move away for work or college, right? But when you find yourself sometimes in that sense of loneliness and that sense of being lonely because you are away at college or you're still trying to make new friends, remember that you also have old friends here as well, and that you have a support system here at this temple. And with this in mind, realizing that this support, while not physical necessarily, is still carrying on its way to you in those times of loneliness and solitude. And in this regard, you realize that this deep sense of natsukashi, this deep sense of familiarity, the deep sense of remembering, of love, right? And with this feeling in mind, place your hands together and say, Namo Amida Butsu. Say that again with me, Dharma school students. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam mandavs, nam mandavs, nam mandavs, nam mandavs. Please join me in Gassho. Passages on the Nembutsu selected in the primal vow compiled by Genku states, Namu Amida Butsu as the act that leads to birth in the Pure Land. The Nembutsu is taken to be fundamental. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam mandats, nam mandats, nam mandats. Good morning, everyone. So yesterday, for those of you who didn't know, we had a Northwest District Council meeting. That's when representatives from the temples of the Northwest District get together and we gather at one place. And for those of you who have represented Tacoma Buddhist Temple before, know that we all gather in Wapato, Washington, in the east, where Yakima Buddhist Church is located. Show of hands, how many of you have been to Yakima Buddhist Church before? It is a very neat building. It's a very neat place. And it was actually, you can really feel the historicalness or the history of the temple when you go there, especially in the social hall that's next to the temple as well. It's huge. It is so big, they're able to put a whole basketball court inside that social hall. So we had a wonderful and very productive meeting. It was very nice to gather with representatives from the other Northwest District temples. And then, of course, the highlight and the big part of the show of the meeting was the lunch that we were served by the Sangha at the Yakima Buddhist Church. Oh boy, was it delicious. There was baked salmon, they had this stir-fry udon, these vegetarian dishes, they had all different types of salad you could eat, and of course, they had a nice side dish with a huge pile of roasted asparagus, and which was also very delicious, I mention. Apparently, asparagus is a really famous vegetable over there. So, we were in for a very nice, wonderful treat. So I would like to thank the members of the Yakima Buddhist Church for hosting all of us. And this was the first time we were all able to get together again and meet in this way since the beginning of the pandemic. So this was a real treat for me and Reverend Cindy, as this was our first time to Wapato and the Yakima Buddhist Church. So we hope we get to visit there again at some point and possibly even have other retreats or fun events at the Yakima Buddhist Church in the future. Today's quote, Gosandai, comes from Shinran Shonin's Kyogyo Shinsho, or his major writings of the teaching, practice, and realization of the Nembutsu Way. And the part that I actually quoted is a quote from Honen Shonin, Shinran Shonin's teacher. Namu Amida Butsu, as the act that leads to birth in the Pure Land, the Nembutsu is taken to be fundamental. On my trip to Wapato and going through the meeting and the business of all of what we were discussing at the Northwest District Council meeting, it's very easy to sometimes get caught up in the business of the temples and how we as a district can better attract people, or update our websites, or make sure that we have all the new things to either keep up with the times or to stay relevant. And when you think about it, we talk a lot about this during board meetings as well. But especially for me as a minister, I have to remind myself why we're making such a strong effort to have these meetings and to modernize, as we can say, and become and stay relevant within the times that we live in. It is still to teach the Nembutsu way of life that Shinran Shonin had very much advocated for during his time. Namo Amida Butsu is one of the sole practices that leads to eventual enlightenment, it is said. But more importantly, for Shinran, Namo Amida Butsu is wisdom and compassion embodied in the words of Namo Amida Butsu. It is wisdom and compassion embodied in words working for us from Amida Buddha's Pure Land. And I believe that this message is still very much relevant and resonates with all of us from time to time, if not all the time, and why we still have these meetings. It is wonderful to get together and see friends and be social, and the social aspect of the temple is a crucial one. But I also think it's really important to remember the commonality and the purpose as to why we're all here and why we get together. Namu Amida Butsu is taken to be fundamental. This means that this is the core teaching and the core basis that we base our teachings off of. And it is such a touching teaching, in my personal opinion as well, because it is something that is so easy to recite. It is so easy to say. We don't have to bow 100 times to the statues of Amida Buddha. We don't have to circumambulate around the temple hundreds of times and for hours upon hours. It is an easy practice that encompasses all of the hard practices that have already been done for the sake of our benefit. It is easy for us to say, Namo Amida Butsu. And in this regard, we receive wisdom and compassion from the working of the Dharma. When I think about how easy it is for us to say the Nembutsu, it brings to mind and it dawns on me, this is why this practice is so popular amongst Buddhists here in the United States and in Japan and beyond. When I think about all of the different temples who came together during the Northwest District Council, all of us still placed our hands together and said, Namo Amida Butsu. Yes, every temple is unique. We all have our own flavor, which is wonderful, and it should be this way. We are all different. We have different people. We have probably our own teriyaki chicken recipes, which is great. We can compete with each other and see whose is better, right? But at the end of the day, when we all sit together here on the Hondo, whether you're from Tacoma Buddhist Temple, Yakima, White River, Seattle, one of the things that links us all is Namo Amida Butsu. All of us put our hands together and say Nembutsu. And I feel that this is another great reminder for all of us when we have these meetings. There is a closeness here in the Northwest District that I have not seen in other districts, and no disrespect to other districts. They're all wonderful and great. I miss my Northern District of California, of course. But when I came here to the Northwest District here in Washington, and of course the other states like Idaho and Oregon, I realized and experienced a closeness, a feeling of mutual understanding, a feeling of togetherness that I have not felt before. And it is very, very special and unique here in the Northwest District. We all have our own temples to go to on Sunday, but at the end of the day, all of us can still come together and say Namo Amida Butsu. In the past few months, or in this past year, and of course during the pandemic, I have seen this togetherness come together again and again. Many of us, us ministers during the time of the pandemic, were finally able to do services together through Zoom and YouTube. You may remember if you go to YouTube and check, there are YouTube services that the ministers of the Northwest District were able to collaborate and do together. It was a wonderful feeling bringing us together. But even in recent days, after the pandemic is done, all of us, of course, we still go to each other's obon, we have Northwest Convention, but we also go to each other's events. Here at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple, we had Reverend Miyaji's seminar, and like stated before, we had members from Seattle, White River, and Tacoma together. The previous year, we had Reverend Blaine Higa. We had people coming up all the way from Portland to come and listen to Reverend Higa talk. We had joint ho'onko service this year at the White River Buddhist Temple. There was a great sense of togetherness after the fire that had occurred at Seattle Betsuin. All of us were so eager to help and to let the Seattle members know that we were there with them in spirit and asked what was it we could do to help them. And recently we had the Spring Ohigan service with Bishop Umitani, with members of White River and Tacoma and Seattle Betsuin here as well. All of this togetherness really brings warmth to my heart and this feeling of the Dharma truly working for our benefit. But once again, Namu Amida Butsu is the essential point that I think unifies all of us as well. All of us are brought to the temple for this teaching of saying the Nembutsu. We are here to support one another and to really live the Dharma that encompasses our lives. And all of this working, this kindness, this compassion, this wisdom encompasses itself in Namo Amida Butsu. I am truly grateful that I am here at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple with such a loving Sangha. And it's through the efforts and the countless causes and conditions that all of you are here as well. of many people from the past, looking at the vast list of names on the Eitaikyo perpetual list behind you, realizing all of the effort that has gone into continuing helping this temple run, makes me realize that Namo Amida Butsu is a teaching worth continuing here in the United States, and a teaching that can share much with everyone. Namo Amida Butsu is also the teaching of non-discrimination. It doesn't matter who you are. And I shouldn't say it doesn't matter who you are, because who you are totally matters, but that all of the aspects of yourself, everything that you identify yourself as, is accepted by Amida Buddha. And in fact, I should change my rhetoric and no longer say it doesn't matter, right? Who you are matters, but all of the aspects of you, every aspect of you, even maybe negative aspects of yourself, like for myself, my ego, my arrogance, all of that is accepted by Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. This also encompasses Namo Amida Butsu. We are not perfect, we are human beings, we are flawed, and yet we still come together as we are here at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple and here in the Northwest District. Imperfect as we are and wonderful as we are, we place our hands together and say Namo Amida Butsu. I was very grateful for Reverend Miyaji's spring seminar as he talked about the joy of the Nembutsu way of life. All of us are so grateful, and we are so, I should say, lucky and privileged to have this teaching in our lives. A teaching that not only teaches us about the fundamentals of Buddhist practice, but also a teaching that brings us all together to enjoy each other's company and to walk this path of the Nembutsu together. I am forever grateful that Reverend Miyaji reminded me, once again, the importance of the Nembutsu in our daily lives and how we should say it even outside of temple. So with this in mind, I would like to thank everyone for coming to today's Sunday service and reciting Namo Amida Butsu. I'm not saying thank you for saying the Nembutsu, more like us saying the Nembutsu is a way of us saying thank you to Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. So thank you very much for joining us today here at Tacoma Buddhist Temple. Please join me in Gassho. Passages on the Nembutsu selected in the primal vow compiled by Genku states, Namu Amida Butsu, as the act that leads to birth in the Pure Land, the Nembutsu is taken to be fundamental. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam mandats, nam mandats, nam mandats.